Hi, my name is Nicole Ross, and this is my Week 3 assignment on climate change and humans. Climate change versus humans, I chose 4 impacts such as the allergens and pollens, food and waterborne diarrheal diseases, diseases carried by vectors, and air pollution. Allergens and pollens, the pollen count is dependent on location and season. However, warmer air temperatures brought on by climate change has a significant impact on the pollen counts. As air temperatures warm, the length of pollen season is affected, as well as how much pollen is in the air and the heightened reactions to pollen. Air temperatures warming and an increase in rainfall is a perfect breeding ground for mold, especially those found indoors. An increase in growth mold indoors may lead to worsened respiratory conditions for those who already have asthma and or mold allergies. For those who fit the category would face heightened challenges in maintaining their asthma. Reactions from allergies can range from a runny nose and itchy eyes to a life-threatening anaphylactic reaction that may result in death. Food and waterborne diarrheal diseases. This is a major issue regarding lower developed countries. Warming air temperatures and water temperatures, as well as a dramatic increase or decrease in rainfall, are 2 major factors in diarrheal disease outbreaks. The 2 most common outbreaks are those stated, and these 2 are the most common. However, patterns of pathogen outbreaks differ by region and the individual pathogen. Though issues are not prevalent in the U.S., it affects elderly and the children the most. Diseases carried by vectors. Vectors are fleas, ticks, and mosquitoes, and amongst other things that spread pathogens and cause illness. They are dependent on climate, but also use land, pest control, and human responses to the disease risk, amongst other things. Daily, seasonal, and yearly climate can have an impact on variability, so climate change increases the variability and may result in adaptation of the vector or pathogen, meaning these 2 things are building resilience. Shifts and expansions of the original geographical ranges of these vectors and diseases are seen as well. The way in which humans are altering the land physically and chemically are directly affecting the climate change, as well as the vectors. Climate change is also enabling these vectors. It is a double whammy, and the fact that humans are altering the land, which in turn alters the vectors. Climate change is enabled by humans, which is enabling vectors. Humans are causing the downfall to themselves in regarding diseases carried by vectors. Air pollution. Climate change is increasing ground level ozone as well as particulate matter, air pollution in some regions. Not every region. However, air currents spread the particulate matter air pollution into the majority, if not every region. The main issue pertaining to ground level ozone and health conditions are the increased risk of diminished lung function, increased hospital admissions and emergency room visits for asthma, as well as an increase in premature death. Though low to middle income countries suffer from the highest exposure to these pollutants, the WHO's data reports that almost all of the global population breathes in air that exceeds their guideline limits. Air pollution is found outdoors in cities and rural areas, causing fine particulate matter, which results in stroke, heart disease, lung cancer, acute and chronic respiratory diseases. Climate change versus the national economies. The U.S. economy is 1. The second is Indiana. Oh my goodness, India's economy. I'm sorry. UK's economy and Australia's economy. The U.S.'s economy. Climate change of the globe is seen as an increase in air temperatures and severe weather. The implications of climate change are felt in every aspect of scale of severity around the world. The U.S.'s economy is hit the hardest by climate change in regards to severe weather complications in the aftermath. These responses and areas that are hit by severe weather substantially widen the income gap between the rich and the poor parts of the country. The major impact on the U.S. economy is seen with food and gas prices. When one area is damaged, the prices of the product will see an increase throughout the country and in other economies. The Indian economy. With climate change comes a change in every aspect of life and everything else on this planet. Precipitation is affected, but in multiple ways. Some areas see an increase in rainfall while others do not. It is a developing country. India's economy suffers from climate change from a main factor being precipitation. Some areas see droughts, while others are being flooded. They cannot regulate their agriculture, which relies on the groundwater and seasonal rainfall for growth and production. The UK's economy is somewhat similar to the US's in the sense of a wide variety of impacts, and not area is impacted the same. If the impact of climate change was uniform, regions may have a better chance at shifting their areas of production to better areas, so the production output would see an increase. The UK faces a conflict when deciding between cost of climate change impacts and the cost of mitigation efforts. Climate models have been shown to be congruent on the impacts of climate change in high-risk areas compared to low-risk areas, including all categories that include coastal impacts, health, labor productivity, droughts, flooding, energy supply and demand, livestock and fisheries, and the ecosystem. There is no drastic variation in the overlays of mapping. The areas that are affected the most are often impacted by the majority of the other factors as well. The Australian economy, their economy is, majority of it is exports. So, provided by the economic modeling, it is anticipated that tariffs based on carbon border will lead to a reduction of exports from Australia, which their economy heavily relies on, thus lowering Australia's economic growth, negatively affecting laborers and Australian jobs. This may be the downfall to any economic opportunities as global demand for clean products accelerate. Climate change versus global economies. I chose 3, and they are coastal cities, marine life and fishing, as well as fossil fuels. Coastal cities. Without adaptive infrastructure, the reports estimated a total cost of 1.6 to 3.2 trillion in damages for the world's 136 largest coastal cities. The thing about these coastal cities and climate change is that sea levels are rising. And being on the coast, they are right there where the water levels are rising. The worldwide goal is to keep global temperatures from rising by 2 degrees Celsius. However, it is projected that these cities will eventually need to be abandoned as rising sea levels become a major threat to major areas such as New York, Shanghai, and Tokyo, which are just a few of major hubs that will be displaced. These major cities are a key factor in imports and exports and economies that will be directly and indirectly impacted, as it will have a domino effect. Prices will surge and humans will be homeless, and there will be less land to live off of and to produce off of. Marine life and fishing. Sustainable fishing is a large debate, though the facts are evident. 83% of global carbon cycle is circulated through the oceans, and they have absorbed 93% of excess heat from greenhouse gas emissions through the 1970s. The oceans are extremely important. They contribute enormously to the biodiversity of this planet, and fishing is the majority of small underdeveloped countries' survival. Areas such as the tropics are projected to see a decline in fish by 40% by the 2050s. Governments and industries have a difficult time agreeing on the best solution to maintain product, as well as maintain the biodiversity and life within the ocean. A study on greenhouse gas emissions found that for each kilogram of fish caught, a production of 1 to 5 kilograms of carbon is produced, when compared to the range given for red meat production, which is estimated somewhere between 50 and 750 kilograms of carbon. So though obtaining fish and the production of fish is lower, the climate change is negatively affecting the ocean, so there are less. So the reliance on red meat is heightened. Climate change affects those lives that are in our oceans and waters. This has a domino effect and comes back to economies that rely on fish and seafood as a source of food and income. Also, disagreements on the best way to approach sustainable fishing and its importance cause tensions, and illegal activities are born to skate around these protective measures. Fossil fuels. The burning of fossil fuels is seen across the globe. Some countries have policies instituted to reduce those emissions, while others continues down the path that they are on. Burning fossil fuels leads to an increase of negative impacts from climate change. Climate change brought upon by fossil fuels is contributing to more frequent and severe extreme weather events that lead to disasters costing at least $1 billion each. Severe weather impacts every aspect of life, from social well-being to mental health to economic standpoints. The severe weather experienced includes, but are not limited to, wildfires, hurricanes, windstorms, flooding, and droughts. As seen in the list below is how climate change has brought on the severe weather, which costs these countries billions, if not trillions, of dollars. And that also affects their economy because now they have less money to put into other things as well as advancements. Here are my citations, and thank you for watching.